Welcome back to Facing the Fury. Going through a natural disaster is difficult enough, but finding out your insurance is not going to cover your losses, it's simply devastating. June 20th, 2018 is a day Mary Colon Cruz will never forget.
My house flooded all the way up to my knees. It went inside the house, all over, my bedrooms, my living room, everything. My stove got ruined, my refrigerator, my washer.
She was shocked because she thought her homeowner's insurance would cover her.
FEMA helped, but it only gave me $10,000. So with that, we finished remodeling the inside and bought the furniture. But there was a condition that we needed to buy flood insurance, because if not, another flood would come. They will not help us.
She now has flood insurance and is covered through the peak of hurricane season until she has to renew. She learned a lesson that day.
You have to get insured that way. You know, if you don't have enough insurance, FEMA will help you, but you still have that insurance to help you out too.
Juan Rodriguez from Farmers Insurance says he took many calls after the June floods.
A lot of people don't have flood insurance, and a lot of people were affected by it. It can be very stressful and very costly.
He says folks typically are uninsured once their homes were paid off.
Flood insurance is definitely a separate policy. Homeowners policies do not include flooding. So if you have, let's say, a hurricane come through the area and you have rising water and it comes through the front doors, then that's something that won't be covered by your homeowner's policy.
If you're a resident of Willacy or Cameron County, you might not be covered with regular homeowner's insurance. There is a separate insurance required for wind damage, specifically in those counties.
They might have a homeowner's policy, but it won't include any coverage for hurricanes.
Rodriguez adds, if you're already insured, review your deductible and do your research. Once a hurricane hits the 80-20 mark in the Gulf of Mexico, they cannot offer any insurance, so it's best to take action now.
Thank you, Sergio. You know, if you're an apartment renter, it's really important that you not only get renter's insurance, but flood insurance as well. Likely the person that owns the building covers the building with their insurance policy, but the contents, the stuff inside, you need to cover that. Renter's insurance covers it, but if the water rises, then you need flood insurance as well. Now that our insurance checkup is done, it's time to start thinking about evacuation. That's a difficult decision for a lot of folks in the valley.
And do not, I repeat, do not try to drive through those flooded roads. It is not worth the risk. Vehicles that have attempted to do so have been stranded and flooded today.
The Great June floods were days of terror for many valley residents. A real reminder of how natural disasters can change your life in an instant. This tropical disturbance caused at least $250 million in damages and called for more than 2,000 rescues from homes and vehicles. This led to question about how prepared the valley is for a hurricane. Each hurricane season, you should have an emergency and an evacuation plan upon a mandatory evacuation.
There are ways of getting to safety for those who can't evacuate. The first thing they should do now is contact the Transportation Assistant Registry for the state of Texas, or 211 Texas, and sign up.
Then, another thought comes in mind. The Rio Grande Valley sector is a common immigrant crossing hotspot, as well as a home for many undocumented immigrants. So what were to happen if a hurricane evacuation were to take place here? Maria Sanchez explains to us that many undocumented immigrants she knows plan to stay if a hurricane were to head to the valley. They will stay because of fear.
We were trying to get the Border Patrol to the sector chief to make a statement, to convey a statement that the preserving lives was going to be the most important thing in case of a hurricane. But, you know, there's always, they refuse. They refuse to do that. And so, why we wanted to use that is we wanted to use that to calm people's fears and to assure people that they can evacuate without fear of being deported or being singled out.
We asked Border Patrol what would happen in this circumstance.
If the area is evacuated and the highways are opened up for traffic leaving the region, all persons will be able to travel through.
Sanchez says undocumented families are worried because there is no clear or exact answer from Border Patrol. It is never recommended to stay during a mandatory evacuation. If you will not leave due to fear, uncertainty, or lack of resources, this is what you need to do.
For people who refuse to evacuate, they need to either evacuate locally to family that are farther away from what would be the worst of the winds, and if they do live in a storm surge zone, they need to consider local sheltering.
Remember, folks, if you're headed out of the valley during a storm, US 77 to the north of Raymondville will be closed. Roads you could consider is 281 to the north of Edinburgh. You can also head to Laredo along US 83, and FM 1017 headed to Heronville is another route you could consider.
Next tonight, we'll tell you what to do if you know you're going to need assistance when a storm strikes, and we'll have advice for those who decide to stay home and ride it out. We'll be right back.
Facing the Fury is supported in part by Lee's Pharmacy.